I must confess to loving the Genesis story. Well, to be honest, I love the creating the earth part, where the Spirit moves across the water, breathing life into the place. It's easy for me to feel awe at that metaphor for the transformation over the first couple of billion years of the planet, first still and then teeming with life. And I love the Garden of Eden story because, yes, it's so easy to be snarky about. Please know that I'm aware that this story has been used for hundreds of years to justify a hatred and mistreatment of women and to diss snakes. Still, I think the story is about attaining sentience, awareness, and consciousness. Painful awareness is what happens to us when we attain knowledge of good and evil. The metaphor of the story for me is complex. Now, before you start getting worried that I'm going to get all biblical on you, because I am, hear me out. The story has endured, hasn't it? The fact that it has remained as part of our cultural awareness strikes me as significant. We all know it. And if we're willing, we might tease out something of use from it. I think there's something there. Does the story imply that to be aware is to invite shame? Perhaps. But I don't think that was the point. The verse shortly after the fall intrigues me, and it goes like this. And the Lord God said, "The man has now become like one of us, knowing good and evil. He must not be allowed to reach out his hand and take also from the tree of life and eat and live forever." So the Lord God banished him from the Garden of Eden to work the ground from which he had been taken. After he drove the man out, he placed on the east side of the Garden of Eden cherubim, which is a guardian, and a flaming sword flashing back and forth to guard the way to the tree of life. I have a couple of notes on this passage. Who is God talking to? I thought he was alone in his omnipotence. Truth is, God was talking to the other gods, or more likely, a goddess. At the time this story was first told, perhaps 3,500 years ago, before 3,500 years ago, God had yet to become into being as a single deity. He was not omnipotent, and he was not alone. And the fear God has is not for these humans, not for their pain. He has little concern for that in this story. It's what the humans might do next that is making him anxious. They must not eat from the other tree, the tree of life. This is the tree of immortality. Immortal and having knowledge of good and evil would make humans equal to God. And that would mean that God is no God at all. So in the story, God solved the immortality threat by banning Adam and Eve from the garden. That was easy. But I digress with this point. You can ponder that further on your own if you so choose, or please feel free to just let it go. Let God or the gods deal with their own issues of exclusivity and ownership of immortality. Besides, now in our story, the humans have their own real issues to deal with, the knowledge gained at the expense of their innocence. The story for humankind now becomes about pain and responsibilities that come with knowledge of good and evil. Knowledge can bring about painful awareness. And yet, like our intelligent and curious Eve, we want to know. Isn't that the story of Eve and the serpent and the fruit? Is it not in us it's not in us not to want to know. What's important, I argue, is how and when we come to know our painful truths. I think the fall from grace, serves as a metaphor in our lives. This fall makes our lives more meaningful and inherently painful. When we offer love and protection to our children, freedom is the result. Safety and the freedom to learn. Freedom from knowledge and therefore freedom from fear of failure, rejection, loneliness, you name it. The freedom children have is what we adults envy, and it comes from that protection, and the children need to be oblivious of that protection. Innocence in children is important because it offers them a space to grow, unencumbered by knowledge of limitations, real or not. Innocence allows the young freedom to become. It doesn't last forever, though, does it? Nothing gold can stay. Emma was golden. She was 5 years old and innocent, full of wonder and joy. I can still picture her round face and soft hair, and I remember what it was like to hold her at that age. Emma was carefree in her play and attached to her people. One afternoon, I found her in her room, the door half closed, as if for the first time she really wanted to keep her feelings private. Emma's thoughts were both too horrible to repeat and too horrible to keep to herself. But on this day, her tears streamed down her face as she clung to her most trusted stuffed animal. "Emma, what's wrong?" She briefly looked up at me, tears welling again in her eyes, and she said, "You're going to die." My heart melted. She knew. She had tasted the fruit, and she had become aware. She had opted to know the truth. All the same, her heart was broken. I wanted to soothe, to take away the knowledge. It's Pandora's box, though, isn't it? You can't close it. Or like the apple, you can't unbite it. I did the best I could. "Well, when you're at school and you can't see me?" "Yeah." "Well, I still love you then, right?" "Yeah." "Well, Emma, when I die, the love will still be there. And I don't plan on dying for a long, long time. Okay?" "Okay." My heart, too, was broken at our encounter. I couldn't deny her newfound understanding. It was only the beginning, of course. It happens to all of us. Nothing gold can stay, nor should it. This painful growing from golden bud to green leaf means the loss of the golden bud. Loss of paradise yields a richer life. It would be a greater tragedy, I think, if her knowledge of good and evil, of all the pain that life can dish out, were to stop there. Of course, this kind of thing happened again and again. I remember when my daughters were older, 11 and 9, I suppose. The 9-year-old, Emma again, what's with this kid? She asked innocently enough, I think, "How do you get AIDS?" Then she stared intently at me. You see, she recognized that people were reluctant to talk about this. She saw the secrecy, the protection that adults had around this disease. My mind rushed to the unspeakable place, my daughters afflicted with this disease. No, my heart silently screamed. They have to know. They have to know so it won't happen to them. On this impulse, I looked directly at them and said, "You get it from sex." "Sex is like fire," I added, trying to think quickly. "Fire warms our house and cooks our food, and fire can kill us." They both agreed, now wide-eyed, and I don't doubt that she regretted the decision to ask. I went further, though. I said, "Sex is so powerful, it can make a new human being." As I said this, I had to pause, looking at the product of said act, and wonder with amazement and so much love. And it's so powerful, too, that it can kill. So be very, very careful with it. Loss of innocence. Loss of innocence offers us two options: cynicism or wisdom. Sometimes we smirk at innocence. We call it naive, especially if we perceive it in adults. We feel superior to hicks or the uneducated. We think we're done. We're not learning anymore. As adolescents, this loss of innocence is natural and expected. In our teenage years, we often choose cynicism. We especially impose this cynicism on our now backward, uninformed parents. We see their hypocrisy, and at least initially, we feel betrayed by our now flawed parents. We've learned that they have always been imperfect. But the cynicism doesn't let us see them as they really are, as human. Cynicism is the road of least resistance to the pain, to disappointment, brokenheartedness that comes with painful knowledge. Cynicism is dark. It's suffering's covering up of an unhealed wound, and it's infectious. It's the serpent's perspective in the garden. We spread it to others as if to assure ourselves that we're not alone in this view. See, it's useless. It would be foolish to love again, to try again, to trust again. It's a whole lot safer to be cynical. And so often we are. And when we're not at our best, in our need to be sure that we're not alone in our cynicism, we turn to others and call them fools for taking risks, for venturing innocently into an endeavor or a relationship. We belittle the effort. And so it spreads. In doing this, we are reassured, yes, but lesser for it, and so closed to possibilities. So let us return to the other possible consequence of lost innocence, that of wisdom. Attaining wisdom requires patience and humility. Seldom is a person unchanged by such an effort. When one finally uncovers a connection or insight that he or she believes to be a personal truth, it is a spiritual experience. Wisdom requires that we acknowledge that there is much we do not know. And there's room for no pride in that. We must have openness, and I think in the end it requires we embrace our own innocence, our own unknowing. This freedom we gladly offer children, can we offer it to ourselves and to each other? Can we use our wisdom to go into a situation with a feeling of innocence, of hopeful trust? How about enough abandon to be open to all that we do not yet understand? In our Soul Matters meeting, our group talked about the value of ignorant optimism. The "I'm glad I didn't know then what I know now" phenomenon. If we knew, we may not have pursued the college degree or fell in love or took a job. What have you accomplished that if you had known how hard it would be, you would have opted to do something else? I'm thinking you might never have embarked on the journey. Innocence is about openness, about being open to possibilities yet unimagined. My hope for you this holiday season, whatever it means to you, as the darkness lingers and the cold creeps into our houses and cars, as we struggle with the seductiveness of cynicism, is that you may have both innocence and wisdom. So let me end today with some wise words that invite us to embrace our innocence. Max Ehrmann wrote the Desiderata, which is Latin for desired things, in 1920. This is a slightly adapted version of the original. Go placidly amid the noise and the haste, and remember what peace there may be in silence. As far as possible, without surrender, be on good terms with all persons. Speak your truth quietly and clearly, and listen to others. Even to the dull and ignorant, they too have their story. Avoid loud and aggressive persons. They are vexatious to the spirit. If you compare yourself with others, you may become vain or bitter, for there will always be greater and lesser persons than yourself. Enjoy your achievements as well as your plans. Keep interested in your own career, however humble. It is a true possession in the changing fortunes of time. Exercise caution in your business affairs, for the world is full of trickery. But let this not blind you to what virtue there is. Many persons strive for high ideals, and everywhere life is full of heroism. Be yourself. Especially do not feign affection. Neither be cynical about love, for in the face of all aridity and disenchantment, it is as perennial as the grass. Take kindly the counsel of years, gracefully surrendering the things of youth. Nurture strength of spirit to shield you in sudden misfortune. But do not distress yourself with dark imaginings. Many fears are born of fatigue and loneliness. Beyond a wholesome discipline, be gentle with yourself. You are a child of the universe, no less than the trees and the stars. You have a right to be here. And whether it is clear to you or not, no doubt the universe is unfolding as it should. Therefore, be at peace with the sacred, whatever you conceive the sacred to be. Whatever your labors and aspirations, in the noisy confusion of life, keep peace with yourself. With all its sham, drudgery, and broken dreams, it is still a beautiful world. Be cheerful. Strive to be happy. And so, although nothing gold can stay, let us let go of our cynicism, especially about love, for indeed love is as perennial as the grass. May it be so.